The clink of champagne flutes felt brittle against the forced bonhomie echoing through the hotel ballroom. Corporate laughter, loud and sharp, bounced off the chandeliers. I stood adrift in the glittering sea, the cheap fizz tasting like acid on my tongue, watching my wife, Eleanor. "Oh, David, he's just my husband," she said, a familiar, almost imperceptible flick of her wrist accompanying the words as she introduced me, or rather, failed to introduce me, to her new regional director. My name evaporated before it was even spoken. The conversation surged past me, flowing into quarterly projections and strategic alignments, leaving me moored to my spot, clutching my glass like a life raft. Invisible. 15 years. Had it really come to this? Not a partner, but an afterthought. An inconvenient plus one whose presence required a brief, diminishing explanation. The sting wasn't just the raw humiliation prickling under my skin. It was the horrifying clarity. This wasn't new. It was the culmination of 1,000 tiny dismissals, a slow erosion I'd somehow permitted. The subtle eye rolls when I talked about my day managing accounts, the impatient sighs cutting off my weekend suggestions, the constant refrain of, "Not now. David, I'm swamped." The evidence had been piling up for years, ignored letters in a dead drop box. Tonight, though, the message wasn't just delivered, it was stamped onto my soul. The drive home was swathed in a thick, suffocating silence. Eleanor, illuminated by the cold glow of her phone, tapped furiously, navigating some work crisis that seemed galaxies away from the tectonic shift happening right beside her in the passenger seat. Our carefully curated suburban house loomed as we pulled into the drive. It didn't feel like home anymore. It felt like a museum exhibit titled Compromises of a Marriage, showcasing deferred dreams, swallowed words, and the gradual disintegration of a man. She headed straight for her home office, the click of her heels sharp on the hardwood floor. I wandered into our bedroom, a space suddenly alien, and confronted the stranger in the mirror. Mid-40s, a softness around the middle I hadn't earned through contentment, temples graying, shoulders slumped in a posture of quiet surrender. The reliable David. Predictable David. The man who paid the bills like clockwork, absorbed canceled plans without complaint, the husband so dependably there he'd become part of the furniture. Easily overlooked, ultimately replaceable in her world. Sleep was a forgotten country that night. My mind, jolted awake, raced through flickering memories of the man I used to be. The lean kid scrambling up rock faces in college, sketching plans for an adventure travel company on napkins. The impulsive young man who once drove 8 hours straight just to feel the thrum of a concert bass line in his chest. Where had that fire gone? Buried under layers of routine and accommodation? And the question that echoed loudest in the pre-dawn quiet. Could any ember of him still be rekindled? Morning arrived not with answers, but with a strange, unnerving calm. I watched Eleanor move through her morning rituals, a whirlwind of designer efficiency, protein shake in one hand, briefcase in the other, phone pressed to her ear. "Be late tonight," she announced, a statement, not a request. "Big presentation prep." I nodded, the practiced motion of the dutiful husband. But as I offered a thin smile, something deep inside clicked into a new alignment. This was the last performance of this role without a script entirely of my own making. The moment the front door clicked shut, the silence wasn't empty. It vibrated with possibility. I opened my laptop, the screen illuminating my face in the dim morning light, and created a new document. Title: Project Reclamation. This wasn't about vengeance, not really. It was about resurrection. If I was leaving this life, it wouldn't be the quiet fade-out Eleanor expected. It would be a departure that announced my return to myself. She thought I was boring? Perhaps. But my exit would be anything but. First, the bedrock, financial autonomy. I began meticulously cataloging our shared assets, untangling the threads of what was legally mine, researching discrete ways to establish separate accounts. Second, the blueprint for rebirth. I listed the adventures I'd shelved, the skills I'd yearned to learn, the landscapes I'd only visited in daydreams. Third, the non-negotiable condition, absolute secrecy. This metamorphosis would unfold in plain sight, yet remain unseen. She was too focused on her ascent to notice the chrysalis stirring right beside her. Over the ensuing weeks, I became the consummate actor. I perfected the role of the supportive, unremarkable spouse. I cooked her favorite stress relief meals. I learned to listen to her monologues about office politics with feigned interest, offering appropriate nods. But beneath the placid surface, a countercurrent was gathering force. While she conquered boardrooms, I plotted my liberation with the quiet precision I usually reserved for complex spreadsheets. The irony was sharp, almost invigorating. Her dismissal hadn't broken me. It had inadvertently set me free from the exhausting pursuit of her validation. The clock on my ordinary life was ticking down. The countdown to an extraordinary departure had begun. Disappearing effectively often means hiding in plain sight. While Eleanor climbed her corporate ladder, I constructed a parallel existence with surgical care. Each morning, after the click of the front door signaled her departure, my transformation began. 40 miles away, in an unassuming town, I opened a personal bank account using a newly acquired P.O. box address. Small, regular transfers from my personal savings, amounts just below any automatic notification threshold. Patience was key. Financial freedom wasn't a sprint. Within weeks, a significant portion of my independent savings was secured. The joint accounts remained untouched. This was separation, not theft. I quietly liquidated some long-held personal investments, converting them into less traceable assets. The boring accountant, it turned out, knew precisely how to make money move silently. The physical reconstruction ran concurrently. I joined a nondescript gym in a neighboring town, hiring a gruff, no-nonsense trainer. Complete overhaul, 6 months, I'd stated, offering no further explanation. He just grunted and pushed me harder than I thought possible. The initial agony was profound, my neglected muscles screaming in protest. But the pain became a strange affirmation, a raw, intense feeling that proved I was still alive. Losing weight, Eleanor remarked one evening, her gaze flicking up from her tablet for barely a second. Trying that new health kick they started at the office, I replied, keeping it bland. She nodded, incurious, and returned to her emails. Had she looked, really looked, she might have noticed the subtle shifts, the tightening definition in my arms, the way I held myself straighter, a flicker of the old fire returning to my eyes. But her gaze had long since stopped truly landing on me. Weekends became my proving grounds. While she pored over reports, I drove 2 hours north to a small airfield. Flying lessons. The instructor, a weathered man with eyes used to scanning horizons, seemed mildly amused. Accountant wants to fly, huh? Midlife crisis hitting hard. Something like that? I'd smiled, the label both accurate and utterly insufficient. The sheer liberation of leaving the ground mirrored the lightness growing within me. Next, I sought out a climbing gym, the chalk dust instantly familiar, awakening dormant muscle memory. My hands, soft from years of keyboard work, blistered and bled, but each hold felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. Online wilderness survival courses became my late-night companions, studied under the glow of my phone while Eleanor slept beside me, oblivious to the man quietly preparing to vanish from her world. Social events transformed into anthropological studies. At the rare dinners we attended together, I watched her perform the introduction, that same dismissive gesture, the familiar joke. David? He keeps the finances running smoothly. Her colleagues would offer polite chuckles. Now, a strange thing happened. I'd chuckle along, a private amusement bubbling beneath the surface. Let them see the caricature. The reality was far more interesting. Behind the scenes, my professional life was also quietly reconfiguring. I began applying for remote senior accounting roles with international firms, my updated resume reflecting a competence Eleanor had long since edited out of her narrative of me. After several discreet video interviews, I accepted a position with a European company offering flexibility and a mandate to work from anywhere with a stable internet connection. The gala invitation arrived 3 months before the event, embossed and ostentatious. "You'll need to rent a tux," Eleanor announced, sliding it across the kitchen island. I picked it up, the date circled in my mind for reasons vastly different from hers. "It'll be a night to remember," I replied, the ambiguity tasting sweet. Her answering smile was purely professional anticipation. My encrypted project reclamation document grew daily, stored securely off-site. The initial fantasy of escape solidified into a detailed operational plan. I researched countries with favorable expat policies, focusing on places beyond the reach of her corporate network. Language learning apps became my companions during commutes she assumed were filled with podcasts. A close call came one Saturday. Eleanor was at an emergency off-site meeting when her sister dropped by unexpectedly. I'd just returned from a tandem skydive, an introductory leap, hair still wild, eyes bright with adrenaline I hadn't yet masked. "You look different, David," she'd remarked, her gaze sharp, suspicious. "Just got back from a long run in the park." I deflected, forcing casualness. Her eyes narrowed for a fraction of a second before she moved on. It was a stark reminder. The timeline needed to remain tight. No room for complications. As winter yielded to a tentative spring, the cocoon felt increasingly fragile. The man inside was almost ready. 62 days until the gala. 62 days until the world saw who emerged while no one was watching. Sometimes, meticulous planning intersects with unexpected grace. 40 days before the gala, browse an online forum for entrepreneurs under my newly established digital identity. A private message pinged. An old college roommate, Mark, someone lost in the churn of decades, recognized a technical point I'd made about financial modeling for adventure tourism startups. We met in a quiet coffee shop miles from our usual orbits. Time had etched character onto his face, success lending him an easy confidence devoid of arrogance. When he asked what I'd been up to, the truth spilled out. Not the edited version Eleanor presented, but the raw story of my planned exodus, the quiet rebirth. He listened, truly listened, his gaze steady. "Funny thing," he said finally, stirring his coffee. "I'm launching a branch in Auckland next quarter. The finance lead I hired just fell through." He leaned forward slightly. "The position involves setting up systems remotely initially, then relocating once you're ready. It's yours if you want it." He slid a business card across the table, a direct number scribbled on the back. The proposed salary eclipsed my current earnings significantly. The location, New Zealand, was high on my list of potential destinations. The timing felt less like coincidence, more like destiny clicking into place. That evening, Eleanor came home buoyed by expensive takeout and career triumph. She was officially shortlisted for the executive position, the one she'd pursued relentlessly for years. I watched her pour champagne, one hand celebratory, the other reflexively checking her phone. "This changes everything, David. For us," she declared, the pronoun landing strangely after months of near absence. "Absolutely," I agreed, raising my glass. "It does." The irony was exquisite, a perfectly aged vintage. Her career apotheosis would coincide precisely with my vanishing act. The physical transformation accelerated. My trainer raised an eyebrow. "Whatever you're doing, man, keep doing it. Never seen dedication like it." 30 pounds shed, replaced by hard-earned muscle. I felt coiled energy humming beneath my skin. A new wardrobe, reflecting the man I was becoming, was secretly assembled and stored in a rented unit, alongside a new passport, international driving permit, and other essentials for my imminent departure. 29 days out, Eleanor hosted a dinner for her department heads. I played the supportive spouse to perfection, affable, attentive with the wine, gracefully melting into the background when the shop talk intensified. But my observation was different now, detached, analytical. I saw the subtle power plays, the way she skillfully minimized others' contributions to amplify her own. It was a masterful performance, but I was no longer her captive audience. Later, clearing dishes, one of her senior colleagues, flushed with wine, cornered me. "How do you manage it?" he slurred conspiratorially. "Being married to that kind of intensity." The question wasn't surprising, but my reaction was. No defensiveness, no forced loyalty, just a calm, genuine smile. "Practice," I replied evenly, "and knowing when it's time to fold." He chuckled, assuming I meant marital arguments. I meant leaving the whole damn table. The following weekend, she flew out for a leadership retreat. The house felt vast, silent. I spent the time finalizing every thread. International bank accounts activated. A modest apartment lease secured in Auckland, first month's rent wired. My resignation letter drafted, time-stamped for electronic delivery minutes after my planned exit from the gala. The machinery was assembled, oiled, and ready. All that remained was the final act. It was surreal, watching her prepare for the gala, utterly oblivious that it marked the collision point of two irrevocably diverging futures. She agonized over designer dresses, booked stylists. I quietly collected my custom-tailored tuxedo, a stark contrast to the ill-fitting rentals of previous years, ensuring it fit the frame I'd painstakingly rebuilt. 17 days left. Over a rare, rushed breakfast, she mentioned casually, "Richard asked if you were coming to the gala." Richard, the regional director. The man from the hotel ballroom. "He probably just wants all the exec spouses there for the announcement," she added, scrolling through her phone. "Just try to look engaged, okay?" Smile. The familiar condescension barely registered now. Each careless barb simply reinforced the rightness of my path. The final technical piece clicked into place a week before. A small, discreet tech firm delivered precisely what I'd commissioned. A remotely activated digital presentation synced to my phone, designed to be unstoppable once launched. The specialist, a young man with piercing eyes, whistled softly as I reviewed the sequence. "Man, whoever this is for, you're aiming to make a statement." "Just setting the record straight," I replied, authorizing the final payment. As the countdown entered single digits, the frenetic energy of planning subsided, replaced by a profound, almost serene certainty. 3 days. 2. 1. The morning of the gala dawned crisp and clear. The last sunrise of my old life. By this time tomorrow, David, the boring husband, would be a ghost. In his place, a man reclaiming his narrative, his dreams, his very self. An unusual stillness hung in the air that morning, the calm before a self-orchestrated storm. I made coffee, the familiar gurgle of the machine marking time, while Eleanor, already immersed in calls, moved through the house like a focused whirlwind. The mundane rhythm of our shared existence played out one last time, unaware of its imminent cessation. "Meet you there," she announced, adjusting her portfolio. "Need to run through the AV setup one last time. Ensure everything's perfect for the announcement." Her focus was absolute. I nodded, the compliant spouse mask firmly in place. "Sounds good. See you tonight." The click of the door echoed in the sudden, profound silence. I stood for a moment in the hallway, surrounded by 15 years of accumulated life, photos, furniture, memories both cherished and tarnished. There was no rage left, only the quiet certainty of an ending, a deep, settled conviction that this chapter was irrevocably closed. The hours that followed moved with the precision of my planning. Final, secure transfers of personal assets. Confirmation of my midnight flight. A red-eye to LAX, connecting onward internationally while the gala's fallout would still be settling. My essential luggage, sent ahead weeks ago, awaited me in Auckland. A text from Eleanor buzzed, "Wear the blue tie. Matches company branding." Even now, coordinating appearances, ensuring I complemented her narrative. I sent back a thumbs-up emoji, possibly the last uncomplicated communication we'd ever share. At 3 p.m. sharp, I confirmed logistics with the tech specialist, discreetly positioned near the gala's control room. Systems armed, synced to my phone's trigger, untraceable post-activation. The presentation file was nested, timed, designed to override standard inputs. Technology, harnessed correctly, could be a powerful equalizer. The ritual of preparation began at 4. The shower, meticulous grooming. The tuxedo, not a rental, but bespoke, fitting the body I had reclaimed, laid out on the bed where she wouldn't see it. Each step felt symbolic, shedding layers of the man I was leaving behind. Before departing, I placed 3 envelopes on her vanity table, side by side. The first contained legal documents initiating our separation, filed electronically that morning. The second, a transparent accounting of our shared finances, ensuring fairness despite the circumstances. The third held a single, carefully worded page, not an apology, not an accusation, but an acknowledgement that some stories require closure for new ones to begin. The gala venue glittered aggressively, a symphony of crystal, ice sculptures, and self-congratulatory corporate opulence. I arrived on time, navigating the familiar terrain of forced smiles and fleeting eye contact. More than a few acquaintances did double takes, a flicker of confusion in their eyes as they registered my altered appearance, but politeness kept questions unasked. Eleanor was holding court near the main stage, radiant with anticipation. Her eyes widened almost imperceptibly as I approached, the professional veneer cracking for a split second. She saw me, perhaps truly saw me, for the first time in years. "David, you look Well, she managed, surprise momentarily overriding her composure. Thank you, Eleanor. I replied quietly, accepting a flute of champagne. Tonight feels transformative, doesn't it? The ambiguity slid past her as the company president approached, and she pivoted seamlessly back into networking mode. I circulated, exchanging pleasantries, a ghost moving through his own wake. Across the room, the tech specialist met my gaze and gave a nearly invisible nod. All systems go. Dinner was a performance piece. Seated beside Eleanor, the designated supportive spouse, the experience felt increasingly detached, surreal. I occupied the chair, but my mind was already continents away. Finally, the president took the stage. The room quieted. As expected, Eleanor's promotion was announced to thunderous applause. She rose, elegant and composed, and moved to the podium. Her speech began, practiced cadences about dedication, vision, and the indispensable support system behind success. And I must acknowledge my husband, David, she said, turning, gesturing towards me with that familiar, almost reflexive wave. Always dependable. Always there. The moment hung in the air. My cue. Slipping my hand into my pocket, my thumb found the specific icon on my phone's screen. A deliberate press. A 3-second delay programmed for effect. Behind Eleanor, the massive presentation screen flickered. Her confident flow faltered, confusion clouding her features as the corporate logo vanished, replaced by something starkly different. The countdown had hit 0. The metamorphosis was complete, and nobody in that glittering ballroom would ever think of me as boring again. The screen behind Eleanor flared, displaying 3 words in a clean, elegant font: the boring husband. A confused, nervous ripple went through the audience. Eleanor turned, her smile freezing as she saw the title, her own careless words from months ago, now writ large, eclipsing her moment of triumph. The presentation unfolded with cool precision, narrated by my own recorded voice, calm, steady, unrecognizable to most. A split screen appeared. The soft, slightly stooped man of a year ago contrasted with recent images. Leaner, sharper, eyes holding a directness long absent. Gasps, quickly stifled, punctuated the stunned silence. Eleanor's face was a canvas of shifting emotions, disbelief, dawning horror, the sickening realization of a profound miscalculation. For 15 years, my recorded voice stated over footage of me piloting a small plane against a vast blue sky. I allowed my narrative to be written by someone else. Tonight, that ends. The screen showed my skydiving certification, then transitioned to breathtaking footage of me in freefall, face alight with exhilaration. Eleanor took an involuntary step back from the podium, her eyes darting towards me, panic flickering within them. Security personnel exchanged uncertain glances. The company president sat rigid, his champagne flute hovering midair. The presentation continued, displaying charts illustrating my independent financial growth, investments she knew nothing about, the logo of the international firm now employing me. While being dismissed as merely dependable, the narration continued. I was building a life you never thought to ask about. Then came the most brutal sequence, a rapid montage of short, discreetly captured audio clips from various events over the years. Her voice, introducing me with that same casual wave, the same diminishing phrases. Oh, just David, he handles the boring stuff. My husband, yes, he's here somewhere. The cumulative effect was undeniable, painting a stark pattern of casual disregard. The air in the ballroom grew heavy with discomfort. Several guests shifted in their seats, avoiding eye contact. I remained standing by my table, calm, observant. This wasn't about shouting, it was about revealing, showing the chasm between her perception and my reality. The final slide displayed the logo of the New Zealand Adventure Tourism Company, my name, title, and new contact information. Effective immediately, the narration concluded as a 60-second countdown timer appeared on screen. Eleanor finally reached me, her voice a low, frantic hiss. David, what are you doing? This is my night. Stop this. No, Eleanor. I replied, my voice quiet but firm, meeting her gaze directly. I'm introducing myself. Properly. The timer ticked down. 50 seconds. 40. The whispers intensified, coalescing into a stunned murmur. Her colleagues watched, mesmerized, as the familiar power dynamic inverted before their eyes. "Whatever this is about, we can talk at home," she pleaded, the professional smile stretched taut over rising panic. "There is no home anymore, Eleanor," I said, the words falling gently but irrevocably between us. "The papers were filed this morning. My flight leaves at midnight. This is goodbye." 20 seconds. Richard, the regional director, the man from the very first scene, watched me now with a sharply reassessing gaze. "You can't just leave," she whispered, desperation supplanting anger. "We built a life." "No," I corrected softly. "You built a career. I maintained a facade. There's a difference." 10 seconds. I straightened my tuxedo jacket, the unfamiliar confidence of its cut feeling entirely natural now. I offered her one last, genuine, almost sad smile. "I truly wish you well with the promotion, Eleanor. You earned it." My gaze swept briefly across the stunned room. "But I've earned this." The timer hit 0. As if on cue, though meticulously prearranged, a side exit door near me opened smoothly, revealing the night outside and the waiting car. I placed my wedding ring carefully on the white tablecloth beside my champagne flute. Then, without a backward glance, I turned and walked steadily towards the open door, towards my future. Behind me, the room seemed to hold its breath for a second before erupting into chaotic noise. On the giant screen, one final message appeared. "David Carmichael has left the building." The door clicked shut behind me, muffling the commotion. I stepped into the cool night air, the city lights blurring softly. The driver nodded wordlessly as I settled into the back seat. "Airport," he confirmed. "Yes," I replied, watching the opulent hotel recede in the window. "International departures. I have a plane to catch." The car pulled smoothly away from the curb, accelerating towards the highway, towards the dawn of a life meticulously reclaimed from the shadows of someone else's ambition. The butterfly had not only emerged, it had taken flight. 6 months later, Auckland felt like breathing clean air for the first time. My rented cottage near the coast, spare and functional, felt more like home than the sprawling suburban house ever did. Work with Mark's Adventure Tourism Company was demanding, invigorating. My financial acumen found fertile ground in their expansion across the South Pacific. My colleagues knew only the man I presented, competent, occasionally adventurous, present. The past was an unread book on a distant shelf. The reverberations of my exit reached me mostly through my lawyer. Eleanor had apparently cycled through stages: threats of legal action for public humiliation, bewildered demands for explanation, and finally, weary acceptance of the equitable separation terms. The house sold. The divorce finalized quietly. Social media offered fractured glimpses. Her promotion held, but whispers suggested the narrative around her had shifted subtly. Being spectacularly abandoned by the husband she'd publicly minimized added an uncomfortable, ironic footnote to her success story. A few tentative messages arrived from mutual acquaintances, some curious, some disapproving. I replied to none. My energy was focused forward. Life found a new rhythm. Weekends were for exploring volcanic trails, learning to navigate sailboats on turquoise water, forging connections with people who met me where I was, not where I had been. Dating was different. Approached with quiet honesty, recently divorced, figuring things out, this version of me is fairly new. It led to interesting conversations, sometimes second dates, sometimes not. The irony persisted. By ceasing to try so hard to be interesting for someone else, I had somehow become more genuinely engaging to others. The past felt truly distant until a conference in Sydney. My company sent me to present financial projections. Navigating the post-presentation networking buzz, a familiar voice cut through the din. "Eleanor." Standing a few feet away, looking as startled as I felt. "David, I didn't know you'd be here," she stammered, her usual composure momentarily fractured. Her eyes scanned me, taking in the changes, the ease in my stance, the lingering tan, the quiet authority that hadn't been there before. "Last-minute addition," I explained calmly. "Your company's expanding into the Pacific Rim?" "Yes," she nodded, still seeming to reconcile the man before her with the ghost of her husband. "I'm heading the international division now." "Congratulations, Eleanor," I said, and I meant it. "That's a significant achievement." An awkward silence stretched, freighted with unspoken history. "You seem, well," she ventured finally. I confirmed. Not triumphantly, just factually. She lowered her voice slightly. I've had a lot of time to think about how things ended. My part in it. It needed to end, Eleanor, I said gently. We were telling the wrong story. Both of us. Her professional mask slipped, revealing a flicker of genuine regret. I didn't see you. Not really. For years. I'm sorry for that. And I stopped letting myself be seen. I countered quietly. That part's on me. But clarity is good. A colleague approached then, needing my input. I excused myself with a polite nod, leaving her standing at the edge of the crowd. No drama, no lingering resentment. Just an acknowledgement of the vast distance traveled. Later, looking out at the glittering Sydney harbor from my hotel window, the encounter settled peacefully within me. No anger remained, no lingering what-ifs. Just a quiet appreciation for the difficult journey that had led me here. Sometimes, the most profound departures aren't about escaping bitterness, but about finally making space for authenticity. An email arrived the next morning. Brief, professional, acknowledging our separate paths, wishing me continued success. I replied in kind, then closed the laptop. My phone chimed, a reminder for the helicopter tour over the Blue Mountains I'd booked for the following day. Another adventure awaited. David Carmichael, the man who had replaced the boring husband, was just beginning.